Hello, Haunted Family. Welcome back. Story 1. Dream Haunting in Atlanta. Several years ago, I had a dream. One of those that you wake up from, all covered in sweat and scared. The dream occurred twice within days after the first dream. It was interesting because I have never stayed in Atlanta. Only driven through on my way to somewhere else. But in the dream, I was there. And now I want to know if this house that I saw in my dream really exists. I think that it does. I think I was being sent a message. But I was not certain at the time what to do about the place I had never been to before. And a haunting that I could not resolve. I dreamed of being in Atlanta. Not the actual city, but a rural area not far from the city. I sensed, as you do in dreams, that we were very near Atlanta. In the dream, my husband and children and I had to move there. We bought this house, a very large white house. One level, with a large attic. It had pillars and a front porch that wrapped all the way around the front of the house. The road leading to the house is red clay dirt. The road winds and is heavily tree-lined. In fact, it's easy to drive right past the driveway. It's nearly choked off by overhanging tree branches and brush. The drive is circular and loops around in front of the house, passing within just a few feet of the huge plank board front porch. There are large front windows flanking the large, heavy wood paneled door. There is no doorknob on the door. There's a large, worn brass pull handle with a deadbolt lock set above it. It was summer, hot and dry, mid-August, I think. And we had to go inside. I didn't want to. The house was really pretty. I liked the house, in fact. I thought it was rather charming. But I did not like the idea of entering the house. We parked the car and got a few things. And we walked up those big steps to the door, unlocked the door, and everyone in my family piled into the house ahead of me. Everyone really loved the house. The great room had a large fieldstone fireplace on the east wall, a beautiful braided rug, wonderful overstuffed sofa and chairs, floor lamps, the works. To the south was the kitchen and dining room, and off the kitchen, swing around into the west, were the bedrooms and baths. The problem came from a coat closet, immediately to my right. The house had dark walnut or darkly stained oak doors and trim throughout. This small closet stood only 6 foot high. It was very narrow, standing just inside the front door. Right next to the closet door, I felt drained and cold, and the worst feeling of absolute cold terror welling up inside my head and chest. It's the kind of fear you first feel when you first learn something terribly wrong with a loved one. Horrible feeling of terror and sadness, of being in terrible emotional pain, sorrow. I felt certain in that moment in my dream that I was standing next to a door that I should never open in my life. But in my dream, as in my real life, I did open it. And the coat closet was empty, save for a few old wire hangers. Empty and cold. Definitely not haunted. I felt nothing inside the closet. But after I closed the closet door and looked at the door, The door itself made my heart ache, and my fears welled up inside of me again. Terrible feelings of dread. I knew in that moment, someone in the house was now, right then and now, and for as long as I continued to live in that house, watching me. It was a real feeling of needing to be out and away, and I cannot accurately describe it. I woke, but twice more I dreamed of that house, of moving day, of the closet door, all the fears returning. The presence had no identity, no sense of male or female, only of being closed in on, of being watched. And with each repeating of the dream, more details of the inside of the house were seen. I knew every square inch of that place. There was nothing frightening about the house except for the door of the closet, right by the front door. I would love to know if the house exists. The dream was too vivid, too many colors, too many details. I know too much about that house that I have never seen in person. I feel I was there. Story 2. My experiences. Throughout my life, I've had a few paranormal experiences. One happened the spring of 1996, and I was living in a town in Connecticut. One night, I had a dream where a rather disturbing figure appeared to me. Although I could not see its face, or the figure clearly, it seemed to be blurred. I knew it was a dead woman. I asked her, "Why did you come to me?" And the answer was, "I have a purpose here." I asked her, "Do you know how long I will live?" The figure said, "You will live to be 57 years old. But that is not exactly determined yet." At this point, I woke up. And now comes the truly frightening part. I found myself laying in a very uncomfortable position, on my stomach, which does not happen to me normally. After a few seconds, I noticed that my bedroom was unusually cold. I also felt a weird tingling sensation running down my spine. I proceed to turn around, and every hair on my head rose at what I saw standing at the foot of my bed. It was a shadow. Now my bedroom was dark, but this shadow was much darker than the dark around it, and seemed somehow fluid, as if it was made out of some dark liquid. My first impulse was not to scream. I remember myself mumbling some kind of prayer, or a rhyme, or something. I don't really remember what I was saying. Only that I wanted this thing gone. I saw the shadow lower its head and then disappear. It didn't exactly fade away. It seemed like it shattered into tiny little pieces, which disappeared. Needless to say, I was wicked scared. After many minutes, which seemed like they stretched forever, I overcame my fear and sat up in my bed. There was an alarm clock by my bed, but it was too dark to make out the time. Finally, I got up and I walked into the living room. The clock in there read 4:26 a.m. I could not go back to sleep, and dozed on the couch until the sun came up. Later that day, I attempted to do a cleansing of sorts in my room, in the house itself, and nothing else happened. We moved a few months later. The next experience I'm only indirectly involved with. I had an acquaintance, a girl who lived next door, and she had a friend who lived close by. Her friend was throwing a party, and all the people I know, including myself, were there. The party didn't really work out, So everyone was bored, and by 10 p.m., people started to leave. People who stayed were me, my friend, who's a total skeptic in the paranormal, his sister, the girl who was hosting the party, and her friend. By 10:30, we were really bored. So the party host pulled out a Ouija board. I was kind of involved with the occult at the time, and felt that a Ouija board was summoning spirits, and should be done with full protection, inside a circle, and that it was necessary for the ritual to be performed, and it shouldn't be done for entertainment. I mentioned this to the rest of the group, and was laughed at. So me and my skeptical friend left. The next morning, we got the lowdown on what happened after we left that night. According to her and the rest of the group, when they placed their hands on the planchette, a spirit arrived, and it said, "Whoever is the first one to take your hands off this will die." One of the girls started giggling, but they all soon felt like they couldn't remove their fingers from the planchette, and began begging with it to let them go. Finally it did. But that's not the end of the story. A few days after the event, weird things started happening in the host's house. One instance, the mother was holding a pair of scissors, doing something, and something pushed her hand so hard that she almost poked herself in the eye with the scissors. Something else pushed her mother into the bathroom, and she almost landed on her head. A lot of it seemed focused at the mother. A lot of pushing of the mother, and the mother hearing voices. Finally, they told the mom that they'd been using a Ouija board, and she took it into the backyard, and she burned it. At which time, all the disturbances stopped. Story 3. The Strange Photo. It was November, and we were celebrating my father's 59th birthday. We had a small party for him at home, just some cousins and friends. A bunch of pictures were taken, but for whatever reason, we forgot to take the roll film to be developed. That following March, my father grew very ill. Around the time he was admitted to a hospital, we found the film, dropped it off to have it developed, and we found something very disturbing. We had taken a picture of him holding his birthday cake. In the picture, you could see right through him. He was literally transparent and ghost-like. Naturally, I figured it was a trick of the camera. Maybe it was double exposed or underexposed or something. However, I noticed the cake itself was solid, while his form was not. I showed only my mom the picture. We said nothing to my dad. As it turns out, my dad had cancer, and he died in late October, just a few weeks shy of his 60th birthday. Strangely enough, the picture disappeared not long after. I've scoured the house, rummaged through boxes, looked through every photo album and closet. It had simply vanished. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the stories. If you did, give me a thumbs up, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, drop me a comment down below. I really do like to hear from you. Music by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio.